1 second. Let's see. Let's see. They done got the diddler. They done got the diddler. Street. Yeah, let me pull up these pages real quick. Damn, that's crazy. He got a news today. Hey, Jesus Christ. Let's start from the beginning. With Diddy. Let's get the full thing.
Hip-hop mogul Sean Diddy Combs is in custody this morning after being detained overnight by federal authorities in New York. According to a person familiar with the situation, Combs was caught off guard by his arrest in the lobby of the Park Hyatt Hotel, where he'd been living for several weeks. The arresting charges are part of a sealed indictment that authorities say will likely be released later this morning. But it comes 6 months after law enforcement sources told NBC that federal agents searched Combs' properties in Miami and Los Angeles, finding guns and seizing computers and cell phones. Those raids carried out on search warrants out of New York into allegations of sex trafficking, according to a source familiar with the matter. Since November 2023, Combs has also been hit with multiple civil lawsuits with similar allegations, including sexual assault, sex trafficking, and illegal distribution of guns and drugs. Combs' attorney released a statement late Monday calling him an innocent man with nothing to hide, writing, "He is an imperfect person, but is not criminal," adding, "Please reserve your judgment until you have all the facts." Just last week, former Danity Kane member Dawn Richard alleging in a lawsuit Combs sexually assaulted her, deprived her of food and sleep, and refused to pay her adequately. In a statement, Combs' attorney called it an attempt to rewrite history and said Richard had manufactured a series of false claims, all in the hopes of trying to get a payday. In May, CNN aired this disturbing video of the rapper chasing down and attacking his longtime girlfriend Cassie Ventura at a Los Angeles hotel in 2016.
My behavior on that video is inexcusable.
The hip-hop producer issuing an apology video after the footage became public, acknowledging the incident which he'd previously denied.
I take full responsibility for my actions in that video. I was disgusted then when I did it. I'm disgusted now.
So attorneys representing some of those individuals who have filed civil suits against Sean Diddy Combs, they actually released a statement overnight, and it says in part that the evidence is very clear, and it was only a matter of time that this is an important step towards justice. Now, Sean Diddy Combs, he's denied any wrongdoing in those civil lawsuits against him, and his lawyer said in a statement that he voluntarily actually
let's see when he was talking about the actual indictment, when he had the press conference. What was it at? Yeah, I think this is it.
Morning, everyone. My name is Damian Williams, and I'm the U.S. Attorney here in the Southern District of New York.
And if y'all don't know, the Southern District of New York, they don't play. When they coming to get you, they coming to get you. It's no ifs, ands, or buts. They're one of the most aggressive prosecutions out there, is the Southern District of New York.
Today, I'm announcing the unsealing of a 3-count indictment, charging Sean Combs with racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking, interstate transportation for prostitution. The indictment alleges that between at least 2008 and the present, Combs abused, threatened, and coerced victims to fulfill his sexual desires, protect his reputation, and conceal his conduct. As alleged in the indictment, to carry out this conduct, Sean Combs led and participated in a racketeering conspiracy that used the business empire he controlled to carry out criminal activity, including sex trafficking, forced labor, kidnapping, arson, bribery, and the obstruction of justice. Let me say a little bit more about the charges. The indictment alleges that Combs abused and exploited women and other people for years, and in a variety of ways. As alleged, Combs used force, threats of force, and coercion to cause victims to engage in extended sexual performances with male commercial sex workers, some of whom he transported or caused to be transported over state lines.
And right there is where a lot of people don't know is when you cross state lines, that's where you get into federal territory. Because Utah can't prosecute a crime from Oregon, so therefore the feds come in and say, hey, we'll work with you to prosecute them on a higher level, and then we'll all get credit to each other.
Combs allegedly planned and controlled the sex performances, which he called freak-offs, and he often electronically recorded them. The freak-offs sometimes lasted days at a time, involved multiple...
Days at a time? What the fuck was DIddy doing? What the fuck was he doing? This some nasty shit. What the fuck?
Commercial sex workers, and often involved a variety of narcotics, such as ketamine, ecstasy, and GHB, which Combs distributed to the victims to keep them obedient and compliant. As alleged, when Combs didn't get his way, he was violent, and he subjected victims to physical, emotional, and verbal abuse so that they would participate in the freak-offs, and that Combs hit, kicked, threw objects at, and dragged victims, at times by their hair. On one occasion in March of 2016, that conduct was captured on video and later reported in the media. Specifically, Combs kicked...
They talking about the Cassie incident where he assaulted Cassie at the hotel.
Dragged and threw a vase at a victim in a Los Angeles hotel when the victim was attempting to flee. As alleged, these assaults often resulted in injuries to the victims, which took days or weeks to heal. In addition to the violence, the indictment alleges that Combs threatened and coerced victims to get them to participate in the freak-offs. He used the embarrassing and sensitive recordings he made of the freak-offs as collateral against the victims. And the indictment alleges that he maintained control over the victims in several ways, including by giving them drugs, by giving and threatening to take away financial support or housing, by promising them career opportunities, by monitoring their whereabouts, and even by dictating their physical appearance.
And that was through the hip-hop, through hip-hop. Hey, if you don't do this, you're not going to get a deal, and I'm going to blackball you through the industry because I'm one of the top guys right now.
Because of all of this, the indictment alleges that the victims did not believe they could refuse Combs without risking their security or facing more abuse. The indictment also alleges other acts of violence undertaken by Combs and others, including violence against witnesses to his abuse, kidnapping, and arson. The indictment alleges that on more than one occasion, Combs carried or brandished firearms to intimidate and threaten victims and witnesses. Now, Combs did not do this all on his own. As I mentioned, Combs has been charged with RICO conspiracy. He used his business and...
So, therefore, when he's saying it's not by himself, there's other people involved. We just haven't said their names yet because he's the focal point of this investigation. However, we will be bringing other people in that are connected to this at a later point. But right now, we cut the head off the snake. All of this stops. We can stop this because this was big. No Diddy. And everybody knew about this. And there were a lot of people over years that participated in this freak off. And the fact that the prosecution has a new term, freak off, Jesus Christ.
And employees of that business and other close associates to get his way. Those individuals allegedly included high-ranking supervisors in the business, personal assistants, security staff, and household staff. The indictment alleges that those individuals facilitated the freak-offs. They booked the hotel rooms and stocked them with the supplies, including drugs, baby oil, personal lubricant, extra linens, and lighting. When the hotel rooms got damaged, they helped clean it up. They arranged for victims and commercial sex workers to travel for the freak-offs, and they delivered large quantities of cash to Combs to pay for the commercial sex workers. The indictment also alleges that they helped Combs cover up his crimes. During the March 2016 incident at the LA hotel that I mentioned earlier, a member of the hotel security staff intervened, and Combs attempted to bribe the staff member with a stack of cash to make sure that what happened was kept quiet. And as the indictment alleges, in late 2023, after public allegations were made about Combs' crimes, he and others pressured witnesses and victims to stay silent, including by making phone calls to witnesses and victims and giving them a false narrative of what they had experienced. And as alleged, Combs used others to help conceal his abuse by monitoring and preventing victims from leaving a location in order to hide their injuries, or by locating and contacting a victim who had attempted to flee. As part of this investigation, in March of this year, special agents from HSI executed search warrants at Combs' residences in Miami and Los Angeles. They also executed a warrant for Combs' electronic devices. During those searches, agents seized evidence of the crimes charged in this indictment. They seized firearms and ammunition, including...
So that means they saw anybody that Diddy recorded. They are on tape. They have the footage. If you was in there doing anything with Diddy past hours where 1:30 where they told everybody to go home and you stayed and he recorded it, it's gonna come out. Like a lot of this is about to come out. Any celebrity, like you said, high ranking officials, as far as like supervisors, hip hop people, regular people, all of this is about to come out.
Including 3 defaced AR-15s
and
a
he had
large
guns?
capacity drum magazine. They also seized evidence of the freak-offs.
Damn.
Electronic devices that contain images and videos of the freak-offs with multiple victims.
Damn.
And they seized cases and cases of the kinds of personal lubricant and baby oil that Combs' staff allegedly used to stock hotel rooms for the freak-offs, more than 1,000 bottles altogether.
What?
Kinds of personal lubricant and baby oil that Combs' staff allegedly used to stock hotel rooms for the freak-offs, more than 1,000 bottles altogether. Here are some of the items that we recovered during the search.
They about to show the baby oil? No, they were not. No, they not.
As you can see here, this is a drum magazine, large capacity, and it contains, I believe, 59 rounds. I mentioned as well, we recovered 3 AR-15s. This is a close-up shot of one of the AR-15s, and you can see right here, the serial number has been thoroughly defaced.
And that's the part where a lot of people are going to ask, why wouldn't you just have a legit firearm? Like, why would you have a defaced fire, especially if you're in Florida, where it's like they're known for guns. Like, having a gun is like having a whistle in Florida. So a lot will say, why is it defaced? You're a mogul. You can do everything. You got connections to really get it however you want. Same in LA. I'm sure you can have a registered gun in LA. New York, I know that's a little different, but why are you living illegal and you're a billionaire?
Another picture of more ammunition and parts of 2 AR-15s right there. Now, I want to be clear about 2 things. First, this office is determined to investigate and prosecute anyone who engages in sex trafficking, no matter how powerful or wealthy or famous you may be. No one should doubt our...
He's serious. He don't take no bullshit. Like, he's serious about his job. He don't take no BS when it comes to his job. You could just tell by his look.
Our commitment on that. A year ago, Sean Combs stood in Times Square and was handed a key to New York City. Today, he's been indicted and will face justice in the Southern District of New York. Second, we are not done. This investigation is ongoing, and I encourage anyone with information about this case to come forward and to do it quickly. Anyone with information can call 1-877-4-HSI-TIP. I want to
And this is Homeland Security that got him. Like, Homeland Security handles stuff like this. I'm gonna play a clip later where somebody breaks down how Homeland Security handles these situations.
express my deep appreciation for the victims and witnesses who have used their voices and helped bring this criminal conduct to light. We would not be here without them. I also want to thank the dedicated case agents on the HSI Trafficking in Person Squad in New York. They have been with us since day one and have worked tirelessly on this investigation. They will continue to be invaluable partners to us. I also want to thank the incredible agents and analysts from SDNY who have also provided tremendous assistance on this case. I'm deeply grateful for their continued work. And finally, I want to thank the outstanding career prosecutors from SDNY who are handling this case. Meredith Foster, Emily Johnson, Chrissy Slavic, Madison Smizer, and Mitzi Steiner.
And everybody that he just named, once this case is over with, they're all moving up. Especially this is political time now too. People want to make names for themselves. New regimes are coming in. People are about to get out of office. People are about to move into office. So a lot of people that prosecute or are part of prosecuting high level cases and they win, they tend to move up. And that's why I say it gets so political that now this is going to be the Atlanta case with Young Thug, and this is going to be the New York case with Diddy. What I mean by that is look how the two handle it way different. Granted, this Diddy's on the federal level and Young Thug is on the state level, but it just shows you the difference of how the feds do things and how the state do things. The feds is completely different. They're handling this way different than the state.
And their supervisors, Jamie Backleeper and Jacqueline Kelly. They are members of the Civil Rights Unit in our criminal division. We created the Civil Rights Unit when I became U.S. Attorney. I'm deeply proud of their work on this and so many other cases. I'll now take some questions.
Aaron Katursky, ABC.
Thanks, Nick. Damian, thanks. The indictment describes aggressive, open, violent, hedonistic abuse that you...
Damn. You see how he described that? Sheesh. The words he used, violent, hedonistic, like, sheesh. This how they paint you when you do wild shit like this. And somebody said something earlier, like, your fun can get you arrested. Like, your fun that you think is fun, having sex, doing all this other crazy shit, might be against the law. Obviously, Diddy took it further, but your fun could get you arrested. You think it's fun doing this, that, all this wild sexual shit, not realizing you breaking the law. And what they say, ignorance of the law is no excuse. So granted, Diddy took this shit to another level. Like, he went above and beyond. I ain't talking about him, but just in general, yeah.
Damian, thanks. The indictment describes...
Listen to what he say.
Aggressive, open, violent, hedonistic abuse that you say was recurrent and widely known.
Damn.
Why did it take law enforcement so long to intervene? How many women were victimized by Sean Combs, and how many others were involved?
Look, our investigation is ongoing. We are committed to bringing justice to everyone who's been victimized by the defendant. I can't tell you why it took so long. I think the better focus is on the fact that we are here today. And we are committed to making sure that justice is done.
Oh, he good. He good. He know how to talk. And that's what a lot of stuff right now. Like, people always want to complain about the past and the why this, why that. No, we're here to stop it now. I can't give you an answer for back then. We was probably doing other shit, but we here now, and we about to handle this shit right now, so nobody else is a victim of this.
Next question.
Thank you. Julia Ainsley, NBC.
Thank you for doing this. You said we are not done and that Combs did not do this alone. Do you foresee that there could be other charges related to this case?
I'm not taking anything off the table.
He do this.
Newsday.
What's the difference between the sex trafficking and promoting travel for the purpose of prostitution?
Well, there are different crimes with different elements. I don't think we should get into the nitty-gritty of the legal discussion right now.
The semantics.
But, the sex trafficking, we believe, they're all serious offenses, but the sex trafficking conduct
is more.
Carries some significant penalties.
Mm-hmm.
And we are gratified that we were
Yeah, we're going to go with the highest. We're not going with the low. We're going to add the low in there, but the highest is the one we want to stick.
able to bring that charge.
Is one more coercive than the other?
I'm not going to be able to get into that, but
We're not
you
getting
can
into
look it up,
semantics.
And yes, sex trafficking, especially when it involves coercion or force, is a very serious crime, and it carries significant penalties.
Good afternoon, Darla Miles, ABC 7 New York. Thank you for this press conference and for the details. 2 questions. In context of this indictment and the information that was presented to the grand jury, are you able to clarify the number of victims? It's mentioned plural in the indictment, but can you specify the number of victims just for this particular
Probably
indictment?
not.
And secondly, can you provide details about the alleged arson?
Unfortunately, I'm not able to provide either. The number of victims, you are correct. We are intentional in saying multiple. The details of the arson incident are limited to what we have in the indictment and also the detention letter that we filed, which contains more details than the indictment does at various points. But we don't have anything more beyond that. Next question.
Lynn Tran, CNN.
Are any of his accomplices or associates under investigation?
We can't speak on that.
Additionally, could he face any more charges?
You know we can't speak on that.
So the investigation is ongoing. That means both as to him and to anyone else who we believe committed the crime with him. Next question.
Juliet Papa.
Hi, good morning from 1010 Wins. Any indication that some of the women or victims here were imprisoned in his residences, and did he have locations where he kept them, and they were not allowed to leave? And also, he's indicted.
Now she trying to say Diddy had him chained up.
Here, although there were searches and raids in LA, Miami. Why in New York?
Well, I'm biased. I'm the U.S. Attorney in the Southern District of New York. I think that we have an outstanding track record of bringing some of the most impactful, sprawling, complex, difficult sex trafficking, human trafficking, labor trafficking, you name it. The Southern District of New York can do it, and so we're very proud of that. And so the scope and complexity of this investigation isn't something that we ran from. It's something that we embrace, and we will continue to do that. As to your question about whether he imprisoned anyone, all I can say is that, I mentioned this March 2016 incident where something was caught on video where a victim was attempting to flee, and there was violence that was associated with it.
Was that at the residence or a hotel?
That was at a hotel.
Matthew Lee, Inner City Press.
Thanks a lot. Does your office intend to seek remand, or are you reaching a bail package? And if you're willing, how would you contrast this with the R. Kelly case in EDNY in terms of the elements? Thanks.
So we will be seeking detention. We have filed a letter laying out our reasoning for seeking pretrial detention. I'm not going to be able to expand beyond what's in the letter, but it contains all of the reasoning, and it contains the law as well. There is a presumption of detention in a case like this, and we think that's warranted.
John Anise, New York Daily News.
Thank you. I was hoping to get some more detail about the searches of his residence, the guns, the cases of lubricant, and the videos. Where were they found amongst his residents? Were they all?
Where was the oil found?
In one place. I kind of wanted to just get.
You try to ask if he had oil scattered around the crib, if he had the guns scattered around the crib too.
A better picture of how that stuff was found.
He wants a vivid picture.
I think that some of the details that you're seeking are in the detention letter. So, for instance, some of the AR-15s. 2 of the 3 defaced AR-15s were found in his bedroom closet in Miami, broken down into parts along with magazines with ammunition loaded in them. So some of that detail is in the detention letter. Beyond that, I'm not going to be able to get into where other items were stored.
Ben Kochman, Post.
Hey, thanks for doing this. Your office was the office that had been prosecuting Jeffrey Epstein before he died in custody. I have not read your
Here he added that in there, in custody, because he did die in their custody.
detention memo yet. It's the first thing I'm going to do after this ends. But does the memo address, or is your office concerned with Combs's safety in custody, given what happened with Epstein?
So we are concerned with anyone's safety whenever they are detained prior to trial. It's part of our obligations to keep people safe as well. It's part of the criminal justice system. So, but I do not draw any sort of connection between Jeffrey Epstein's suicide and what may or may not happen to any other defendant while they are detained pre-trial. And of course, the decision whether to detain the defendant will be up to a judge. Our position is that pretrial detention is warranted under the law and based on the facts of this case, and I'll leave it at that.
Are some of the prosecutors on this case some of the same prosecutors that had been handling that, or that worked on the Maxwell case?
So I'm not going to get into the staffing. I will say that this team, this group of AUSAs, this incredible group has been working on this case around the clock, and they've had their hands full. Next question.
Gus Rosendale, NBC News.
Nah, they're going to show.
And I'm Cindy Hsu. Sean Diddy Combs has been charged in
This assistance on this case, reason why this conduct was so pervasive.
Women that's
and
prosecuting
harmful
it
was because victims and others didn't necessarily feel comfortable denying him his wishes, as we allege, because of the presence of. Morning, everyone.
They showed the people that was prosecuting them. Damn, I wanted to show. It was 4 white ladies prosecuting this case.
Thank you very much. Now to some breaking news. TMZ reporting that Sean Diddy Combs is now a criminal defendant in a sex trafficking, racketeering, and kidnapping case after a grand jury indicted him.
Let's bring in founder and executive producer of TMZ, Harvey Levin, for more on this. Harvey, we are expecting some sort of news conference, I believe, in less than an hour from New York. But what are you hearing so far?
Well, Melvin just mentioned a few of the allegations. There are so many more. We are talking, as you said, sex trafficking, prostitution, racketeering, kidnapping, narcotics offenses, arson, bribery, drug charges, including during the raids, they found oxy, GHB, ketamine, cocaine, MDMA. They found AR-15s. There is clear reference in this indictment to that Cassie video where she was brutally beaten at the Century City Hotel by Diddy in March of 2016. They mentioned that prominently in this indictment. Also, they mentioned these freak-off parties, these sex parties that Diddy had, and they say that he had pressured women into having sex with male commercial sex workers, freak-off parties, which they say he often recorded. So there are just a variety of charges here. His lawyer says not only is Diddy not guilty, his lawyer says he's innocent when he walked into the courtroom. And like you said, the U.S. attorney is going to be laying this out at 8:30 our time in a news conference.
Harvey, the arson charge that you mentioned, is that in any way connected?
All right, so I got another one I could play. This is like a current update. It's an update right here.
City Press. Okay, here we are, Matthew Russell Lee, Inner City Press, outside the Southern District of New York Courthouse, where we've just live tweeted the detention hearing of Sean Diddy Combs, Love Combs, as he's now called, as he now calls himself. It seemed like a close question. At first, it seemed like a no-brainer, and then Judge Charnosky, for example, asked Assistant U.S. Attorney Johnson, could it really be considered sex trafficking if it was all consensual, as Mark Agnifilo said it was? Then Judge Charnosky took the pretrial.
That's big right there. That's huge. No Diddy. That if the judge is questioning right there, if you're a defense attorney, you're going to pounce on that. You're going to say, you know what? No Diddy again. You know what? This is something that we could use this. The judge is already questioning the prosecution.
Trial services into the robing room, which usually means they're considering conditions, or if conditions exist, various GPS and other things. But when she emerged, she said the presumption of detention has not been rebutted. You will be detained. Now, there's a hearing. It was scheduled even before that fight for next Tuesday, September 24th, when the UN General Assembly high-level week begins. It'll be at 10, though. We're going to do our best. Before Judge Carter, Andrew L. Carter, the assigned district judge. Are they going to go there first, seeking another shot at release on bail? We'll have to see. The presumption has not been rebutted. Sean Diddy / Love Combs is detained. Inner City Press live tweeted it, and we put a little analysis on Substack on extra subscribers. In any event, back into the courthouse. To be continued.
All right. Two people were in the hotel. Okay, 2 people were in the hotel room and issued that Mr. Combs had more than one girlfriend. Okay, victim 1 was looking through his phone and saw that, then hit him in the head with the cell phone and took his clothing. So he comes out in a towel. Judge, there was been significant violence and weapons around. Also, coercion of the witness, even gentle coercion can be effective. The type of behavior we're talking about happens behind closed doors. I thank your family members. I thank your family members for coming, but I cannot release him. Well, I think, okay, yeah, so he's sitting in jail until the next court hearing for sure. And this is what they plan for. So even that bail package that they put up, they don't care. So this the bail package. The defense proposes for the following bail package: a $50,000 bond, co-signed by Sean Combs, his mother, his sister, the mother of his oldest daughter, and his 3 adult sons. Secured by the equity in Mr. Combs' residence located at 2 West Star Island, Miami, Florida. The appraised value of the home is about $48 million. The home is unencumbered. In anticipation of this bail hearing on August 20, 2024, Mr. Combs paid off the remaining mortgage of about $18 million so that the home could be used to secure a bond and be free of mortgage. Okay. Secured by the equity of Mr. Combs' mother home located on 450 Alton Road in Miami, Florida. Mr. Combs' travel will be restricted to Southern District of Florida and Southern District of New York to attend court, meet his counsel, and attend medical appointments, which we will address to the court in a separate scale submission, as well as the Eastern District of New York or the District of New Jersey, only the extent that his travel to and from New York involves an airport in those districts. Mr. Combs' passport was surrendered to his counsel on April 1st, 2024. His counsel advised the prosecutors of this fact in an email dated the same day. Counsel will provide this passport to pretrial services. The passport of the following family members who have already surrendered their passport to counsel after the raid. So the passport, okay, so even the family, yeah. Janice Combs, Chance Combs, Jesse Combs, Delilah Combs, Love Combs. So everybody gave up their passports, so they can't say anybody is on some bullshit. So this was the bail package that they proposed for Diddy. So he's sitting in. He's definitely sitting in jail until Tuesday for sure. With the judge out of the courtroom, the pretrial services rep Combs is sitting at the defense table. Okay, so they were just breaking down everything that happened. Okay. So let's go to. Let's see what she got on her page. Report from Mrs. Perry. Diddy has a bail review at 3:30. Okay, so this is his lawyer outside of the courtroom. I'm assuming after the bail hearing.
We have a bail appeal scheduled for tomorrow at 3:30 in front of Judge Carter, the district judge assigned to this case. I think that we made the points that we've been wanting to make. I think it came out. Mr. Combs is a fighter. He's going to fight this to the end. He's innocent. He came to New York to establish his innocence. He's not afraid. He's not afraid of the charges. There's nothing that the government said in their presentation today that changes anyone's mind about anything. He's been looking forward to this day. He's been looking forward to clearing his name, and he's going to clear his name. And we're going to stand by his side as he does. We believe in him wholeheartedly. He didn't do these things. This was a 10-year relationship. There's no coercion. There's no crime. There's basically just, someone who brought a civil case and now is finding themselves as a witness in a criminal case. And we're going to fight this case with everything we have, as is he. And eventually he's going to be shown to be innocent. And so tomorrow we fight again, and we'll fight every day until we don't have to fight anymore.
Why did the arrest happen last night instead of today as planned?
I don't know. The question is, why did it happen last night instead of today? I don't know the answer to that question.
Are you going to be
I just want to make one point very clear. We have no power. All we can do is show good faith. He got on a plane and he came here. And if he stayed here for one day before the case started, or for 1 year before the case started, he was going to stay as long as he needed to stay. It ends up being only 12 days. That's fine. That's what the government wanted to do. The government didn't want him to turn himself in. He came here to turn himself in. Why doesn't the government want him to turn himself in? Because then they can't ask for detention. So they go and they arrest him. They arrest a guy who came to New York to turn himself in.
And they still detain him too, by the way. So I'm assuming this is before the bail, before the court appearance.
Well, we're going to make all these points again tomorrow, and we'll make it as much as we can until we get him out.
Will you appeal the bail?
So that's all I have.
How is he feeling? Will you appeal the bail?
Yeah, tomorrow. Wait, what was the question?
Will you appeal the no bail?
We're appealing.
No bail.
Yeah, we're no bail. No bail.
Where are you appealing?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, this is after.
We're appealing the decision to hold him without bail.
When is the next court appearance?
Tomorrow at 3:30.
Otherwise.
3:30, same place. Bail appeal. Bail appeal tomorrow at 3:30.
Okay, so he did have the bail hearing. This is afterwards. He's saying he was detained. They get to come back tomorrow to appeal the bail.
Same court, different judge. He's doing fine. He's a fighter. He's a fighter, and he's going to fight this. All right, I'm going to go.
Where is he being held?
I don't get into that stuff.
I don't get into that stuff.
Where's the support?
Guys, you got it, bro. You got to move it. Got him. Use your legs.
I'm assuming. Okay, this is son, but this is kids right there. Yo, this got to be a crazy feeling. Like you just trying to walk into a court and you just get hounded. People ask you the most absurd questions that they know you can't answer, but they're still going to ask you. Like, famous or not, who would want to go through this? Man, I would have ran in that courtroom. Like, did you witness anything? What? Yo, this is a crazy thing. Like they swarm you like bees. What? What's that? What?
You are an issue.
Don't touch me. What? What did he say to him? And what is that noise?
You are an issue.
What? I'm an issue? You don't even know me. Dude, this is wild. That's crazy. I'll be hot. I'll be hot if a motherfucker just had cameras on my face like that. Diddy's lawyer included email to prosecutors. Okay, so Diddy's lawyers included emails with prosecutors as exhibits for their bond requests, including this email from June about Diddy's family road trip. They will go to Sedona, the Grand Canyon, Lake Powell, Zion, and Death Valley. They're all Mr. Combs. Oh, he CC'd everybody in this motherfucker. Mr. Combs will be departing from Miami at 6 p.m. tomorrow on his plane for Los Angeles Tuesday. He and his family will depart on their road trip. They will go to Sedona, Grand Canyon, Lake Powell, Zion, and the Death Valley. We will be in touch with his flight information back to Miami. Hope you all had a nice weekend. Yeah, see, his lawyer's smart. Let's document everything, so can't nobody say nothing. Can't nobody say nothing about, no, oh, y'all ain't do this. Nope. We've been communicating with y'all since day one. I'm about to go through this indictment. What we got? United States District Court, Southern District of New York. Aggressive motherfuckers. So this is the sealed indictment. It's unsealed. Sean Combs, a.k.a. Puff Daddy, P. Diddy, a.k.a. Diddy, a.k.a. PD, a.k.a. Love. Racketeering conspiracy. So it charges that for decades, Sean Combs, the defendant, abused, threatened, and coerced women and others around him to fulfill his sexual desires, protect his reputation, and conceal his conduct. To do so, Combs relied on employees, resources, and influence of the multifaceted business empire that he led and controlled, creating a criminal enterprise whose members and associates engaged in and attempted to engage in. Among other crimes, sex trafficking, forced labor, kidnap, arson, bribery, and obstruction of justice. God damn. The defendant operated his business headquartered at various times in Manhattan, Los Angeles, under a variety of United States-based corporate entities, including Bad Boy Entertainment, Combs Enterprise, Combs Global, Collective, the Combs Business, corporate entities, and the Combs Business included, among other things, record labels and recording studios, apparel line, and alcoholic spirit business, and marketing agencies, and television network and media companies. Yo, these shits is detailed like a motherfucker. If you ever wanted to be a lawyer, or if you are a lawyer, salute, because this is, to type all this shit, god damn, at all times relevant to the indictment. Let's get to this shit. This is abuse. At times, Combs and other acted in his discretion and made arrangements for women and commercial sex workers to fly to Combs' location. Combs ensured participation from the woman by, among other things, obtaining the disturbing narcotics to them, controlling their careers, leveraging his financial support, and threatening to cut them off at times. Threatening to cut them off at the same. Using intimidation and violence. Sheesh. Right. On numerous occasions from at least in or about 2009 and continuing for years, Combs assaulted women by among other things, striking, punching, dragging, throwing objects at them, kicking them. These assaults were at times witnessed by others, including one instance at a Los Angeles hotel. Okay, this is the Cassie incident. So this is where supposedly other people witnessed it, and the simple fact that it was recorded. The defendant used Combs' business, including certain employees, to carry out, facilitate, and cover up his abuse and commercial sex. Those employees, including security staff, household staff, personal assistants, high-ranking supervisors, and other close associates, acted as Combs' intermediaries, and their conduct was facilitated and assisted by Combs' control of the Combs' business. Jesus Christ. The Combs associate, but then Combs Enterprise. All right, so the Combs Enterprise constituted an ongoing organization whose members function as a continuing unit for a common purpose of achieving the objects of the Combs Enterprise. The Combs Enterprise was engaged in, and its activities affected interstate and foreign commerce. That's how they get you. So they just talking about employees operating. So they just saying he used a lot of his people. A lot of the people that work for him were complicit in what was going on. Preserve, protect, promoting, fulfilling the personal. Yeah, so that's what I'm like. Yeah, they got fulfilling the personal desires of Combs, particularly those related to Combs' sexual gratification, including through the exploitation of women and the use of commercial sex workers. Protecting Combs' enterprise. Means and methods. Among the means and methods by which Sean Combs, a.k.a. The defendant, and other members and associates of the Combs Enterprise conducted and participated in the conduct of the affairs of the Combs Enterprise, including the following. Combs and other members and associates of the Combs Enterprise wielded the power and the prestige of Combs' role of the Combs business. They sure mention the Combs business a lot, threatening lower female victims into Combs' orbit, often under the pressure of romance relationship. Combs then used force, threats of force, and coercion to cause victims to engage in extended sexual acts with male commercial sex workers. Jesus Christ, Okay, freak-offs occur regularly, sometimes lasting multiple days. What the fuck? And often involve multiple commercial sex workers. During the freak-offs, Combs distribute a variety of controlled substance to the victims, in part to keep the victims obedient and compliant. Sometimes, unbeknownst to the victims, Combs kept the videos he filmed of the victims engaging in sexual acts with commercial sex workers. After the freak-offs, Combs and the victims typically receive IV fluids to recover from the physical exertion and drug use. Damn. So I'm gonna lure you over with romance and all this other stuff, feed you drugs, keep you under this spell, then give you the IV, bring you back to life, but also keep this going for a couple of days. Hey, this is crazy. Members and associates of the Combs Enterprise, see, they just keep saying of the Combs Enterprise, facilitated by the freak-offs, among other things, booking hotel rooms for the freak-offs, stocking the hotel rooms in advance with the required freak-off supplies. Not this shit got required freak-off supplies. What the fuck? Including controlled substance, baby oil, lubricants, extra linens, and lighting. Cleaning the hotel rooms after the freak-offs to try to mitigate room damage, arranging for the travel for victims, commercial sex workers, and Combs to and from the freak-offs, resupplying Combs with requested supplies, delivering large sums of cash through Combs to pay commercial sex workers, and scheduling the delivery of IV fluids. In or about March 2024, during searches of Combs' residence in Miami, Florida, and Los Angeles, law enforcement seized various freak-off supplies, including narcotics and more than 1,000 bottles of baby oil and lubricant. There it is. This is an indictment. Like, in or about March 2024, during searches of Combs' residence in Miami, Florida, and Los Angeles, California, law enforcement seized various freak-off supplies, including narcotics and more than 1,000 bottles of baby oil and lubricant. This motherfucker was getting it in a pallet. Like, you ever seen, like, in the warehouse where they got the forklift with the pallet? Like, that's what you got to put 1,000 bottles of baby oil on. Like, you can't just put that in a bag, in a couple bags you carry. No, this was on a pallet. This is crazy. And then his staff was allegedly stocking the room with the freak-off supplies, which is the baby oil, the drugs. Like, everything is, like, laid out for you. That's crazy. So that's what they're saying. Like, his staff is complicit in some of these freak-offs. Like, you lured the people in just as, like, you did. It's just like shooting somebody. It's like, if you in a car and somebody in your passenger seat shoot at somebody and you driving, you just as guilty as them. So this is the same equivalent. It's like you set the room up for these victims to get lured into and taken advantage of. Like, because you knew. And everybody, they're alleging, everybody that was part of the Combs business or enterprise knew about it, and y'all didn't do nothing. They paid y'all off, and y'all just went with the flow. Yeah, so this is 1,000 bottles of baby oil and lubricant. Jesus Christ. Combs subjected victims to physical, emotional, and verbal abuse to cause the victims to engage in freak-offs. Combs maintained control over his victims through, among other things, physical violence, promises for career opportunities, granting and threatening to withhold financial support, and by other coercive means, including tracking their whereabouts, dictating the victim's appearance, monitoring their medical records, god damn, controlling their housing and supplying them with controlled substance during and is separate from the freak-offs. Combs, among other things, hit, kick through objects, and drag victims at times by their hair. Talking about the Cassie incident. These assaults often resulted in injuries that took days or weeks to heal. Combs also threatened victims' careers and livelihoods, including if they resisted participating in freak-offs. Victims believed they could not refuse Combs' demands without risking their financial or job security without repercussions in the form of physical or emotional abuse. Combs also used sensitive, embarrassing, and incriminating recordings that he made during the freak-offs as collateral to ensure that the continued obedience of the silence of the victims. God damn. This shit is fucking crazy. I'm only on page 7 and it's 14 pages. Jesus Christ. Okay, they talking about the firearms. Members and associates of the Combs enterprise, including Combs security personnel, at times carry firearms on more than one occasion. Combs himself carried or brandished firearms to intimidate and threaten others, including victims of and witnesses to the abuse. In or about March 2024, during searches of Combs' residence in Miami, Florida, and Los Angeles, California, law enforcement seized firearms, ammunition, including 3 AR-15s with defaced serial numbers, as well as drum magazines. And with the defaced serial number, that's automatically like a Fed charge, like the ATF or some shit come in. Jesus Christ, Diddy, what the fuck? This is crazy. Yeah, so they just alleging again, you know, how people of Combs Enterprise witnessed Combs' violence towards victims or the victims' injuries caused by Combs without intervening, saying his staff should have did something about that. Y'all complicit, just like just like Diddy. When employees witness to his abuse or others threaten Combs' authority or reputation, Combs and members and associates of the enterprise engage in acts of violence, threats of financial and reputable harm, and verbal abuse. These acts of violence, including kidnapping and arson, they talking about the Kid Cudi shit right there. Jesus Christ! In addition to multiple occasions, Combs threw both objects and people, as well as hit, drag, choke, shoved others. I would say in the latest 15 years of Diddy's career, as he's gotten bigger, that's probably where he started getting out of control, because this is fucking crazy. Let's see. Okay, so we got the racketeering conspiracy. So for the people that don't know what the racketeering is, we all about to figure it out together. From at least in or about 2008, we go back to 2008, sheesh, through on or about the date of the filing of this indictment in the Southern District of New York. Remember, Southern District of New York, them some heavy hitters. They don't play. And elsewhere, Sean Combs, a.k.a. Love, the defendant, and others known and unknown, being persons employed by and associated with Combs Enterprise, described in paragraphs 6 through 12 of this indictment. The enterprise engaged in the activities of which affected interstate and foreign commerce. When they start putting all that language in there, you know you fucked up. When they start putting commerce in there and all that, you know you fucked up. Knowingly combined, conspired, and agreed together, where I'm at, and that which either to violate the racketeering laws of the United States, to wit, Title 18 United States Code Section 1962C, that is to conduct and participate directly and indirectly in the conduct of affairs of the Combs Enterprise of a pattern of racketeering activity. That the term is defined in the Title 18 United States Code Section 1961, and all that good shit. Multiple acts involving kidnapping, chargeable under the following provisions of the state law: California Penal Code kidnapping, California Penal Code attempt, California Penal Code aiding and abetting, California Penal Code conspiracy. Multiple acts involving arson, chargeable under the following provision of the state law: California Penal Code arson, attempt, aiding and abetting. Jesus Christ. God damn. So that's what they're basically saying it's like you knowingly or not knowingly, you participate directly and indirectly in the conduct of the affairs of the Combs Enterprise. God damn. Like, so y'all was involved in this shit. That's like, conspiracy is wide. Conspiracy could be, I called you and said, hey, I need somebody that can get me a bunch of weed. And you say, oh, I know. And you say, I know a guy. And then you call somebody and say, hey, somebody needs to buy some weed. You're going to jail. If they get caught, you're going to jail because you participated in that transaction. That's how they get people with conspiracy. It's that simple. All you did was make a phone call. You put these two people together. You wasn't even there for the buy. You just put them together. You going to jail. That's crazy. Multiple acts of bribery. Jesus Christ. Chargeable under the following provisions of the state law: bribe a witness, aiding and abetting. Multiple acts related to tampering of witness, victim, or an informant. Forced labor related to sex traffic, relating to transportation, and to travel for purposes of prostitution and other illegal sexual activities. Multiple offers, including the possession with the intent to distribute or distribution of narcotics and controlled substances, including cocaine, oxycodone, I don't even know what the fuck that is. What the fuck? I don't even know how to pronounce them motherfuckers. God damn. Gamma hydric butyric acid, ketamine. Jesus Christ. They got you with distribution and possession with the intent to distribute and conspire to do the same. Yeah, this is fucked. What else they got? Okay, so they got from commit at least 2 acts of racketeering activity in the conduct or affairs. All right. So notice of special sentencing factor from at least in or about 2009 up to and including in or about 2018 in the Southern District of New York and elsewhere as part of this agreement to conduct and participate in the conduct of affair of the Combs enterprise through a pattern of racketeering activities. The defendant agreed to and affecting interstate foreign commerce, knowingly recruited, entice, harbor, transport, provide, obtain, advertise, maintain, patronize, and solicit by any means a person knowing and is reckless disregard of the fact that means of force, threats of force, fraud, and coercion, and described in Title 18 of the United States Code Section 1591, any combination of such means would be used to cause the person to engage in the commercial sex act in violation. This is just fucking crazy. Like, grand jury further charges from at least in or about 2009 up to and including in or about 2018 in the Southern District of New York and elsewhere. Sean Combs affecting interstate foreign commerce. So they keep repeating the same thing. Because I know in their world, this means a lot. So think about your world and how to you it makes sense, but to somebody else it might not make sense. So to them, all of this makes sense for them to keep saying this. What the cause? Yep. Count 3. Jesus Christ. So those are just 1 and 2. From at least in or about 2009 and including in or about 2024. Transport. All right. So the same thing. Forfeiture allegations as a result of committing the offense alleged in count 1 of this indictment. The defendant shall forfeit the United States pursuant of Title 18, 1963, and any and all interest the defendant acquire or maintain a violation. Securities claims against the property. As a result, count 2. Also, they're going through more legality, the more that lawyer talk. Substitute asset provision. If any of the above described forfeitable property as a result of any act or omission of the defendant cannot be located upon the exercise of due diligence, has been transferred or sold to or deposited with a third person, has been placed beyond the jurisdiction of the court, has been substantially dismissed in value, or has been commingled with other property which cannot be subdivided without difficulty. So basically, we want all this shit clear, like, and then do signing at the bottom. Jesus fucking Christ! Like, if y'all want the read it yourself, it's on Twitter. All you gotta do is go on Twitter and type in Diddy indictment, and it's all gonna pop up. 'Cause that's crazy. I want to go to the dude. I know a lot of people hate the dude from Fresh and Fit, but he was a former Homeland Security dude, former Homeland officer. So he kind of broke down. Yeah, here we go.
As pictures to prosecutor are on the phone, they need it, but I think more than likely a package that, and I know we're jumping the gun a little bit because we got to get into the indictment and what we probably think.
What's going to happen is he's going to have his initial appearance in front of a magistrate judge tomorrow, probably in Manhattan. When he's there, they're going to unseal the indictment and they're going to hit him with the charges. I predict it's probably going to be sex trafficking and racketeering because, and I can talk about why it's going to be racketeering here in a second, but he's going to go to his initial appearance in front of a magistrate judge. That magistrate judge is going to assign him to a district judge because he's been indicted, so now his case is going to go to a district judge for his initial appearance because it's mandatory by law that you go see a judge within 24 to 72 hours of you being arrested. So he's going to get the charges read to him that are on the indictment. He's not going to actually enter a plea. It's an initial appearance only. They're going to tell him he has the right to remain silent, blah, blah, blah. And then they're going to ask, hey, what does the government want to do as far as like his bond, which I'm assuming him and his legal team are probably posturing to try to get him released on a bond tomorrow is what I'm assuming, which is why he's been so cooperative and flew up to New York and kind of made himself available to the feds because he knew that this indictment was imminent.
Okay, do you believe that magistrate judge, which you know is going to be tasked with the initial appearance, do you think that, you know, again, we're talking high-profile case, it's a lot of man hours, a lot of money. Do you think that they are prepared to deal with a potential bond application or a bond, you know, almost initial appearance to listening to bond tomorrow, or it's something that they will probably put off to another date?
I think they'll probably kind of figure it out tomorrow. I think the whole purpose of him cooperating with the government the way he has was for this very moment so that he can get bond. And if he doesn't get it on this one, there'll probably be a bond hearing shortly thereafter, maybe a couple days after, where they just will strictly have a bond hearing because he's not going to be entitled to what's called a preliminary hearing to establish probable cause because he's been indicted by a grand jury. So the next step is going to be the arraignment, which is where he's actually going to formally enter his plea. And obviously there's going to be a potential bond hearing if they need it. But I think more than likely he's either A, going to get the bond tomorrow, or B, there'll be a bond hearing specifically for that where, you know, his attorneys are going to argue on his behalf and say that he's not a flight risk or a danger to the community, which are the two main prerequisites to, you know, get yourself bond. He'll probably surrender his passport if he hasn't already. And yeah, but I predict he's probably going to get out on bond, which is why he's been so cooperative with them in the first place.
Okay. All right. So let's deal with some, you know, minute details. And I know you've been there where you're the main case agent and you've gotten a case, you've presented it, and I don't know, maybe worked it up, maybe your chain of command, but eventually they got approved to go to the U.S. Attorney's Office. They say, yes, we're going to go with this. Somehow there is either an indictment or it's just written up in a complaint. And you now have to serve the arrest warrant. What do you think? So this one came down via TMZ today. They said they plan to arrest him tomorrow, but something came up. We don't know what. They haven't said. They had to do it today. In your experience, what was this like? Again, you know, obviously you're saying that you believe that there was a presentment today, that the true bill of indictment came through, so they're aware of it. What do you think could have changed the circumstances? You just, you know, again, we're spitballing, we don't know everything, but you know, you're probably the best person we could ask.
So I can explain that. So
oh no. Hold on. What the hell happened?
There's pictures to prove she's with him. Would that be considered as sex?
Oh, what the
Just click from the chat. Is a chat between me and Myron.
Human trafficking later on when they get into the United States and they're forced to work jobs or whatever it may be, of course. But people often conflate human smuggling with human trafficking, which are two completely different crimes. One is, you know, AUSC 1324. The other one is a far more serious crime that's 18 USC, right, which is the criminal code versus the immigration code. So that's number one. Number two, as far as sex trafficking goes, it's actually fairly hard to prove. A lot of the times when people think that they got a sex trafficking case, and I know this because I've been on so many of these different raids, is what ends up happening is you bust a prostitution ring, right? You thought, oh yeah, we had these girls are being trafficked, whatever. You talk to them and they all love their pimp. They don't want to cooperate. They don't want to say that they were being held or whatever. You know, some of them are lying to protect them. Some of them were trafficked or whatever. But the point is that it's very difficult to get witnesses because sometimes they don't want to necessarily cooperate. So what ends up happening is you just end up getting everyone arrested for solicitation charges, right? Ends up being just a prostitution ring bust. Now, the way to get around that though, right, which is how the feds come in a lot of the times, is if the girls are under 18, it's an automatic human trafficking charge.
Wow.
Automatic.
Why
So
automatic?
that's where they're going to get them.
Damn.
Is some of these girls, from what I understand,
That's
were
clarity.
under 18 at the time when Diddy was messing with them and bringing them around in different states.
Okay.
That, I think they're going to get them. I mean, I'll have to look at the indictment to see, but this is my prediction.
Okay, let me interject and add. So on one of the particular civil cases that he has is that there was a young woman who was 17 that was supposedly, she met someone that worked for his label. That person said, hey, I think Diddy would like you. They called Diddy. Diddy spoke to the girl, spoke to the person, and then within a matter of hours, the girl got on a private jet to fly to Diddy and allegedly was around him. By the way, this girl, I'll post it here. I'll send you a link if you want to show it on, your stream.
Yeah, please.
Or you could even Google 17-year-old Diddy. There's multiple articles about it. Her face is blurred out. She was seen sitting on his lap. Okay, there's a New York Post. I'll post it in the chat here. I don't know if whoever.
Okay, yeah, because Bill's on the computer, so he could do it.
All right, so Bills, you could just click from the chat. It's a chat between me and Myron, and it's a New York posting. It says Sean Diddy Combs accused of drugging and gang R-wording a 17-year-old in a new suit. There's photos of this girl sitting on his lap. Obviously,
damn,
she's not shown for obvious reasons. She was 17 at the time. Her lawsuit against him says she was gang R-worded, but what's also very important is she was 17. Here's the important part. I think she was in, I believe, let me make sure, Detroit, I believe, and then he was either in New York, and let me just make sure, chat, I'm sorry. Yes, the woman said she met Pierre, who was an executive at Bad Boys Entertainment. So she met one of his workers in Detroit at a lounge, and then essentially he called Sean Diddy Combs on the phone and convinced the teen to fly to New York City. Before leaving the lounge, they said the worker took her to the bathroom where he smoked crack with her, and
what
apparently
the fuck?
had her have sex with him first. Then he put her in a private jet from Pontiac, Michigan. She landed in Teterboro, New Jersey, which this is where Jay-Z and everybody else, everybody who got a private jet who goes to New York lands in Jersey at Teterboro. That's fact. And yeah, they drove to a studio, and she has pictures to prove she's with him. Would that be considered as sex trafficking?
Yeah, that's a kind of dry.
Because once you cross state lines, especially with a minor, that's
human trafficking right there at the federal level, because she's not 18. He moved her in between states. That affects interstate commerce. So that's where they're going to get them. And I know some of the audience here might be shocked by me saying that human trafficking isn't as prevalent as people think, but it really isn't. It's really the human smuggling that is the extremely common thing that people tend to conflate, because they're two completely different crimes. But the big way, and I know this from being on human trafficking task forces and working with these guys closely, a lot of the times when they do these busts, what ends up happening is it's prostitution ring, and they don't want to cooperate against the pimp. They're not really being abused. They're doing it willingly, and they're of age. However, if they catch a girl there that's underage, then it morphs into human trafficking automatically, because that woman can't consent.
I have a question.
That's how they get the nexus.
If the girl lied about her age, does that matter?
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, that don't matter, my boy. They don't give a fuck if she lied about her age or not. She is underage, my boy.
So if she's 17 and she was being, and there was a pimp and she was being prostituted, it's automatic human trafficking charge. And the feds will take that almost always. And the two biggest agencies that investigate human trafficking are Homeland Security Investigation, HSI, and the FBI.
Okay. Also, what about this? In different states, there's different ages of consent.
Yeah.
So on a state level, I believe, and we could Google it for New York age of consent.
Might be 17.
That is 17.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's statewide. Obviously, the national age of consent federally is 18. Could Diddy have an argument to say, well, she came here willingly, and the age of consent in New York is 17?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if his legal team doesn't try it. But they're going to say, hey, federally it's 18. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, federal law is 18. They don't care about what the states say. If you cross state lines and then that state is 17 and your state 18, we don't give a fuck about that. In our book, you got to be 18 or older. If you under the age of 18, you cross state lines, it's over.
I think that's where he's going to have to pay his defense team the big bucks to make that argument in court for him.
Wow. Okay, so all right, we get sex trafficking. So I think everybody who's spoken about this, and I've spoken to you, I've spoken to Bradford Cohen. Yo, I got to get you with Bradford Cohen. Like, I'm telling you, like he's an invaluable mind that everything he's predicted when it comes to these proceedings have always been correct. And I think you and him, you guys are like, it would be like a power couple. Pause. Anyway.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
But wait, she came from Michigan, you said, right?
Yes, she came from Detroit, Michigan.
Consent, a 16 in Michigan? Okay, all right. I was just looking to see what the age of consent is in Michigan. But sorry, what was the next thing you wanted to hit?
So I guess we're looking at the litany of charges he could face. It appears that sex trafficking is going to be on the bill, right?
Yeah, and then we got...
We sit down with the man who famously represented Meek Mill and Bill Cosby on his thoughts regarding the newly unsealed federal indictment against Sean Diddy Combs, charging the music mogul with sex trafficking and racketeering. We bring on Brian J. McMonagle once again.
Yeah, let's see what he got to say.
Brian J. McMonagle, thank you so much for coming on, Brian. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
So, your reaction?
And these are like the experts. These are motherfuckers that's going to give it to you how it's supposed to be. No Diddy. They break that shit down the right way. Not these internet lawyers. He's an actual lawyer that's tried cases. Like none of these fake YouTube lawyers.
Action, is it what you expected?
You know, it was, and yet reading it took me back a little bit. It's quite stunning that he's been charged with a racketeering crime. You know, when you think of RICO, you think of a lot of things. You don't usually think of entertainers. But here we go. And it is rather staggering in terms of the accusations. You're talking about sex trafficking. You're talking about kidnapping, forced labor, and the like. And it's going to be a war. The charges couldn't be more serious. My guess is the government will seek pretrial detention, as they often do in cases like this. He's got a really great lawyer, and he's going to need one.
And we'll get to that pretrial detention because that is what prosecutors are moving forward with. But the racketeering, right? So you have this idea that he is leading this criminal enterprise. It's not like it's Sean Combs LLC, you know, it's a group of people, right? And the idea is that he's using illegal methods to force women and, you know, men as well into these situations. And it's a combination of all of these underlying crimes. But the government is not proving, they don't have to necessarily, they're not charging him with kidnapping or forced labor, but it's an underlying crime, part of this criminal conspiracy. How tough is that to prove? I mean, we know R. Kelly in New York, in the federal context, was charged, was found guilty, sentenced to 30 years in prison. But how tough is that to prove?
You know, RICO has always been an amazing tool for prosecutors, supposedly an easy lift. But when you look at it a little bit more carefully, the first thing they're going to have to prove is a criminal enterprise. Was this really a criminal enterprise, or was this simply a legitimate business that did some pretty despicable things, for lack of a better way to describe it? And the government's got to prove two predicate acts in order for there to be a racketeering conviction. So they've got a high burden of proof. but they've used a statute that time and time again has ensnared a lot of people and convicted a lot of people throughout the country because of its breadth. It is extremely broad, but it is not without limits.
And so talk to me about ways you think that he would defend against this, because these allegations are quite stunning. We dedicated a full episode to breaking down this indictment, but you have everything from this idea of all of these ways that he was using sexual violence and physical violence and intimidation against these people to do what he wanted. And I want to break down something for you. So in this separate letter from the prosecutors to the judge, were they asking for his bail to be denied, or he not be granted pretrial release? I want to list some of the evidence that they say they have, because this indictment, although it's comprehensive, is a little bare bones. So they say the government has conducted interviews with over 50 victims and witnesses, many of whom saw or experienced the defendant's abuse. Many of those witnesses corroborate one another, and their accounts are similarly consistent with the other types of evidence discussed below. The government only expects that number to continue to grow, given that the investigation, which is now public, is ongoing. The electronic evidence is vast. The government has sought and obtained numerous search warrants for such evidence, in addition to obtaining evidence voluntarily from certain victims and witnesses. Setting aside devices seized in connection with the defendant's arrest, the government has obtained over 90 cell phones, laptops, cloud storage,
90,
as well as over 30 other electronic and storage devices such as hard drives, thumb drives, cameras, a surveillance system. This electronic data.
And they said they saw all the freak-offs on the phones, hard drives. They got all of that shit. So they know who was involved in these freak-offs. Names, faces,
The
all.
defendant himself, as well as co-conspirators, victims, witnesses, and chronicles much of the defendant's criminal activity as it occurs. So that feels really tough to defend, but what do you think some ways that you're going to see his defense attorneys fighting back against this?
Yeah, besides that, Mrs. Lincoln, how'd you like to play? It is going to be really difficult to defend. But I think what you're going to see is a rather calculated effort to break it all down. Number one, was he involved in the specific acts? Are there buffers, to use the Godfather analogy? Were these sex workers or were they victims? Were these people being compensated and paid for their time? Were they voluntarily taking drugs, or were they being drugged? The difference is like the difference between lightning and lightning bug. And, if the defense can find some symmetry in those talking points to say, hey, listen, bad behavior, horrific behavior, but everybody came into this thing with their eyes wide open. They got paid for what they did, and they left compensated. I think that's the only way you can defend it, because the video, particularly the one that we all saw in the hotel, is pretty hard to stomach. And a lot of this stuff is going to be hard to stomach. The seizures that occurred at his multiple homes with, AR-15 assault rifles that have obliterated serial numbers, tough to defend. But I think what you're going to see is, hey, listen, we didn't force anybody.
Just even with the guns alone, he going to jail. Like, that's a federal crime right there in itself. So this is imminent.
He didn't do anything. This was all orchestrated. It was bad behavior, but nobody did anything against their will. And then it's a cross-examination exercise, and they got to hope they get a little bit lucky with one or more of these eyewitnesses in terms of maybe giving false statements or something like that. Otherwise, they're in for a long haul.
Do you get the sense, even though there are no specific alleged victims named in this indictment, and they're not named in the letter as well, do you get the sense that this indictment is based upon, maybe entirely, the accounts from the people who have already sued him? So Cassandra Ventura, Rodney Jones, Joy Dickerson-Neal. He's facing so many different charges, and so many different complaints. Somebody who's been following it for a while, I saw overlap. I mean, more specifically, the Cassandra Ventura 2016 video, which we all know about, which was amplified, which was mentioned by Cassandra Ventura in her complaint, and then we all saw after the CNN published it, and Sean Combs apologized for it. It is mentioned in this indictment. That's a more specific example. There are other things that are more general. But again, it seems to be consistent with the allegations that have been levied against him in these complaints. So do you think that those people who sued him are the cooperating witnesses in this indictment?
There's no question about it. I mean, the federal government doesn't typically need a roadmap, but they got one here. And the civil litigation, I'm sure, consists of the very same players, very same alleged victims, very same witnesses. So they took that and they probably, as you would have imagined, put it in front of a grand jury, got additional witnesses to corroborate that which was, portrayed in the civil litigation. And that's going to be your case. I don't think there's going to be many surprises here for the defense. They've seen this. I think they expected this. And my guess is particularly the way I've seen this charged, it looks like, just as you've discussed, they just took the playbook from the civil litigation and, they put it within the rubric of RICO, and now it's life and death.
And one of the complaints, I believe it was Rodney Jones, alleged RICO violation. So I wasn't surprised to ultimately see that. Were you surprised at the number of counts here, in the sense that, if you compare it to R. Kelly, who I believe was facing more, and there was obvious allegations regarding minors. Here you have a very wide, overarching racketeering charge. And then you have these two other charges, one sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion, that is with respect to victim one, and then transportation to engage in prostitution. Why those charges, you think?
Well, they want to be able to establish the predicate crimes. And, like I said, they only need a couple of them. In every RICO I've ever seen, you have the RICO charge, and then you have a laundry list of counts. I was surprised, quite frankly, of the brevity of the complaint. I honestly thought you were going to see a RICO and then about 100 separate counts that a jury would have the ability to return verdicts. So they didn't do that here. It was bare bones, and I'm not so sure it was done without great thought. I don't think they wanted to marry themselves to specific acts just in case they don't have them at the time of trial.
Yeah, this was very broad.
Said before the grand jury, and keep in mind, you can only indict by what you presented in front of a grand jury. And so they probably kept it, as simplistic as they could, because juries can get confused, they can get distracted. And then if some of those other counts that you've overcharged go wrong, it could lead to a real problem for the government. So they kept it simple.
That's so interesting. So there is a possibility that more was presented to the grand jury, and the grand jury said there wasn't enough probable cause for these other things you're asking us to come back for, but there is probable cause for these three counts.
Could be that. You could also see a superseding indictment. I've seen that time and time again, where you get the indictment, 2-3 weeks from now, a month from now, they supersede. I don't think they're going to do that here. They took
you mean
a lot
charge
of time.
him with additional crimes?
Oh yeah, they have the ability, probably within the next month or two, to supersede this indictment anytime they wish, quite frankly. I don't think they will. I mean, this is the kind of...
So this is another angle of his lawyer talking. His lawyer has said this. Diddy's lawyer, Mark Aganfoilo, confirms Cassie is a witness in the Fed's criminal case against Diddy and says they are appealing the decision to hold without bail. Damn, so Cassie got the money and she a witness? I thought it don't work like that. I thought once you get the money, then you out the game. But I guess the fans like, not in our book.
All right. So
Man, there's people for that.
This was the first step. We have a bail appeal scheduled for tomorrow at 3:30 in front of Judge Carter, the district judge assigned to this case. I think that we made the points that we've been wanting to make. I think it came out. Mr. Combs is a fighter. He's going to fight this to the end. He's innocent. He came to New York to establish his innocence. He's not afraid. He's not afraid of the charges. There's nothing that the government said in their presentation today that changes anyone's mind about anything. He's been looking forward to this day. He's been looking forward to clearing his name, and he's going to clear his name. And we're going to stand by his side as he does. We believe in him wholeheartedly. He didn't do these things. This was a 10-year relationship. There's no coercion. There's no crime. There's basically just someone who brought a civil case and now is finding themselves as a witness in a criminal case.
So he didn't say Cassie's name, but he talked about Cassie because he said, look, you did the civil already. Now you wiggled your way into the criminal case.
Someone who brought a civil case and now is finding themselves as a witness in a criminal case. And we're going to fight this case with everything we have, as is he. And eventually he's going to be shown to be innocent. And so tomorrow we fight again. And we'll fight every day until we don't have to fight anymore.
Where is he being detained?
I don't know. The question is, why did it happen last night instead of today? I don't know the answer to that question. I just want to make one point very clear. We have no power. All we can do.
And see, all the YouTube lawyers on Twitter lawyers, they're expressing the sentiment that his plane might have landed in New Jersey, which is the Teterboro airport that they were saying earlier. And then the feds like, oh, nope, let's get him down because he might be trying to take a flight somewhere. So not everybody, I said this earlier, but the Southern District of New York, they are very aggressive entity. So when they sit there and set their mind to something, they own it. There's no games. They're very aggressive when it comes to prosecuting people. They prosecuted some of the highest people. Like so Epstein was there. I think they had El Chapo there at one point.
Do is show good faith. He got on a plane and he came here. And if he stayed here for one day before the case started or for 1 year before the case started, he was going to stay as long as he needed to stay. It ends up being only 12 days. That's fine. That's what the government wanted to do. The government didn't want him to turn himself in. He came here to turn himself in. Why doesn't the government want him to turn himself in? Because then they can't ask for detention. So they go and they arrest him. They arrest a guy who came to New York to turn himself in. But we're going to make all these points again tomorrow, and we'll make.
Yeah, because they said Diddy's a flight risk. He might threaten witnesses, witness intimidation, witness tampering. So they like, look, we need him locked up through the duration of this case. And that's usually how it is with the feds. Most of the time, people are locked up. It's very few that do get bailed to fight the feds. But they, like I said, they have a high conviction rate as well. It's like 90-something. It changes, but not that many people win against the feds.
Make him as much as we can until we get him out. So that's all I have. Huh?
Tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow.
Sheesh. I know Long Cry had another one.
The indictment alleges that Combs abused and exploited women and other people for years, and in a variety of ways.
Sean Combs' sex parties, dubbed freak-offs, are a big part of the indictment, charging him with racketeering and sex trafficking. His lawyer, meanwhile, says he's going to fight the charges.
He's not guilty. He's innocent.
Intimidate, threaten, and lure female victims into Combs' orbit, often under the pretense of a romantic relationship. Combs then used force, threats of force, and coercion to cause victims to engage in extended sex acts with male commercial sex workers. That Combs the allegation is that this was all for Sean Combs' sexual gratification. Sex workers were hired in some instances. People were forced, they felt like, to take part in these things. They were videotaped, and then coercion was used, almost like blackmail was used to keep them quiet about it. And the part that gets me is the fact that IV fluids were given to participants. Talk to me a little bit about that type of thing. I mean, where's the federal crime there?
Well, there's some interesting parts of the indictment that build on public reporting that we heard a couple of months ago when there were public raids or search warrants executed at the homes of Combs. So just speaking to the IV fluids, that's alleged in the indictment to be one of the things that members of the enterprise did to assist Combs in setting up these freak-offs, as they're defined in the indictment. So some of the things that the indictment says that were done are setting up hotel rooms, buying supplies, which include baby oil and lubricant, making travel plans for the sex workers.
And keep in mind, they're saying his staff is complicit in this. They set up the rooms. They laid the baby oil out. They laid the drugs out. They did all of this stuff for him So all he had to do was just enter the room and do his thing.
As well as Combs, and then delivering IV fluids. And when we talk about and think about what we learned, what was publicly reported, which is not very much back then about what was taken out of the homes, but now we learn in the indictment at least some of the things that were taken out of the homes, which they include the baby lubricant, baby oil and lubricant. I think believe it says more than 1,000 bottles of those between the homes. Now, how probative or how important and helpful that evidence will be for the prosecution were this to go to trial, that remains to be seen. But certainly we see what some of the search warrants yielded in this indictment, it looks like.
Yeah, the prosecutor, the U.S. attorney, I should say, mentioned that in his press conference that they seized 1,000 bottles of lubricant / baby oil seized during the raid. If you're Sean Combs' lawyer, I assume you just say, look, this is a guy who has an active sex life. This is something he stores, whether you like it or not. He has a lot of this stuff. Is that kind of where you go in defending that type of thing? Because, I mean, you hear 1,000 bottles of lubricant and you just think to yourself, oh my God, why does anybody need 1,000 bottles of that stuff?
Yeah, I think that could be an argument for the defense. Other things that were seized that are named in the indictment are interesting to talk about, including a couple of guns, and that piece and how it's connected to the enterprise and to the way that they are describing in the indictment, the prosecution is describing the indictment, the freak-offs. There's an allegation that there was sometimes brandishing and use of these weapons, not necessarily those weapons, but weapons in general for the purposes of intimidation and threats. And so that evidence weaves into the proof of the indictment as well. That was recovered from the search warrant. So I hear you on the possible defense argument for the lubricant, and I think the question of why there were guns in the house, that will be something else that the defense has to contend with moving forward.
They say that the allegation is that he kept videos and he filmed a lot of this stuff. Basically, he did this to keep people quiet about this. It was almost blackmail material. And it kept people obedient to him and compliant to him. So is there a federal crime in that? Or is the crime more in that they're saying he transported sex workers across state lines? He was using some type of coercive things. He was coercing people to take part in these things. Is the crime really in the transporting of sex workers across state lines for these parties?
That's part of it, yes. There are 3 crimes that are alleged in the indictment. There's racketeering conspiracy, there is sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion, and then there is transportation to engage in prostitution. So the racketeering conspiracy charge is the most robust and far-reaching. The charge of racketeering in general allows a prosecutor to put in evidence of the enterprise. In this case, the enterprise is defined as the Combs enterprise, which is defined as basically everybody around him and working with him. As the evidence unfolds with the prosecution, they'll be able to put in evidence about the way that his lifestyle was, the way that his businesses ran, the way that the people that worked for him operated. And just 2 things I noted from the indictment that were interesting. To your point, the discussion of video evidence. Now, it doesn't say, from what I read in the indictment explicitly, that there is video evidence different from the recovery of the lubricant and the firearms, but it does suggest, from the way that it's written, that there is potentially video evidence of that Combs retained for himself of the freak-off. So it suggests that. It doesn't go as far as saying that, but I feel it's probably possible that the prosecution does have that kind of evidence based on reading this indictment.
And the part about giving drugs out at these freak-offs to the participants, I'm assuming that's to keep people kind of engaged in this activity. Drugs can cause people to lose their inhibitions, as we know. What part of the crime does that include? Is that a coercion part of it?
It's not clear from the indictment what piece of that entirely it will be, how it will be woven into the prosecutor's case. Certainly, we can conclude logically that using drugs could be have a coercive element. There was a note, apart from the firearms and the lubricant that was found in the houses, were also narcotics. I did not see what type of narcotics that they were, whether they were personal use, weight, what kind of weight we're talking about, whether it's a personal use narcotic weight or whether it's something larger that could be distributed to more people. I think we'll learn more as the evidence unfolds and as the case kind of moves forward.
Yeah, there was ketamine, GHB, and some other things, ecstasy, which were named as drugs by the U.S. attorney in his press conference. But it's all, as far as the freak-offs go, are the freak-offs really the meat of the case here, in your opinion, with Combs using his company, the enterprise, so to speak, to organize these parties? Is this really the meat of the case?
It's hard to say. When we're talking about a racketeering enterprise and proving that up at a trial, there's many things that can come in. So it sounds like because they're alleged so explicitly in the indictment, that is something that the prosecution would intend to put in as a centerpiece of evidence at trial. Whether or not, as the case continues, that is what we will see if it were to go to trial remains to be seen. Certainly from the indictment, it sounds like, particularly with the detail of the IV drip, that there are witnesses to the things that are being alleged in the indictment, and that was returned after a vote by a grand jury. So we can imagine that there may be more that will be learned from those witnesses should this go to trial.
Well, it will be certainly something to watch. Rena Paul, do you anticipate more coming out of this? That's really the big question. The U.S. attorney says, this is ongoing. If you have information, call us. Are more dominoes going to fall? And will we see possibly a superseding indictment? Because we have 3 charges here. I think people maybe expected a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll see. Many times when a racketeering indictment is put out, it is with multiple people in it, because there have to be multiple people that engage in the crime in order for it to be a crime at all. You can't do this crime with one person. So the fact that there's only one person named in the indictment is something that I certainly paid attention to when I read it. And we'll see if there are more and whether or not anyone will be publicly named along with him or superseded into the same indictment as him.
It will be very interesting to see. Rena Paul, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And that's it.
Yeah, goddamn. They, what was the other one that?
It's official. Disgraced rapper Sean P. Diddy Combs has been arrested and indicted on federal New Year when another bombshell lawsuit was filed against Diddy. In February, Rodney Jones, known also as the producer Lil Rod, filed a massive civil suit against Diddy, alleging he's the kingpin in a drug trafficking, gun trafficking, and sex trafficking ring. Lil Rod's lawsuit lays out some pretty serious allegations, saying Diddy apparently forced Lil Rod to use drugs and even sleep with a prostitute. Lil Rod also mentioned something extra important in the lawsuit. Quote, Mr. Combs required Mr. Jones to record him constantly. Mr. Jones has secured hundreds of hours of footage and audio recordings of Mr. Combs, his staff, and his guests engaging in some serious illegal activity. So we couldn't confirm it at the time, but we believe those video and audio recordings are what federal investigators were searching for in the raids on Diddy's homes. This happened in March when the
olive leaf extract can help detox.
So this
your
one of
body
the
in 7 days. It's like magic, but better because it's real and it gives real results.
This is one of the chicks that supposedly dealt with Diddy
Before, all right, except for one time recently. And Miss Virginia V here uploaded a video of her and Diddy the mogul.
Yes.
Okay, so welcome to the A.
Thank you for having me.
We got you all the way in from Las Vegas.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. Well, I'm so honored that you're sitting down with me. Now, before we get into everything, I want to say that Virginia has never, ever done an interview. Okay. So I want you to be patient with her. All right. She has a valid reason as to why she's, telling her story, because when we spoke, the other night after the video went up and it went viral. Everyone was shocked, like, whoa, Diddy has a new girlfriend, has a new boo. You guys were like tongue kissing and there were some photos. And I know you got hella followers from that because when Shade Room got it, it was over. Once they get it, it's over.
Yeah.
So, all right. So I want to start from the beginning, okay? Because we discussed a lot over the phone. Some very, very intimate details and things that just kind of made me go, wow. Okay, about the specifics of you and Diddy's relationship. So I want to start from the beginning, okay?
Okay.
How long have you known Diddy?
I've known him for 5 years.
5 years.
Yes.
And do you mind like telling me what year did you meet him?
I met him February 2014. Well, technically the very first time I met him was September 2013 because I was at a fight in Vegas and I went to the Palms and he was hosting there. So I kind of met him there, but he says he remembered it vaguely. And then like 5 months later, I ran into him again in Miami, February 14, 2014. So that's when we like officially met, I guess.
And what was that encounter like? When you met him and like you remember him,